All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Irving Arts Center's Lunch and Learn. My name is Marcy Inman. I am Director of Exhibitions and Educational Programs here at the Irving Arts Center. I'd like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you visiting the Arts Center for the first time and or attending a Lunch and Learn session for the first time. We hope you come back. We are kicking off our 2025-2026 season with guest speaker Giselle Castro-Brightenburg, who will discuss her paintings currently on exhibit here at the Irving Arts Center in De Profundis, Echoes from the Deep in the Carpenter Lobby Gallery through October 25th. Giselle is a Dallas-based artist whose vibrant paintings are deeply inspired by the natural world. She holds a BA from University of Dallas, here in Irving, and an MA in aesthetics from the University of Texas at Dallas, a different school and a different location. Over the years, Giselle's work has been showcased in several exhibitions, including a solo show here at the Irving Arts Center back in 2000, which I was still able to pull up all the materials in the press release I wrote. As well as a solo exhibition at Brookhaven College and the Longview Museum of Art, where one of her pieces remains part of the museum's collection. After building a career as the digital media manager at the Dallas Museum of Art and dedicating time to raising a family, art became less central to her life for a period. However, her passion for painting reignited recently, leading her to complete over 40 new works within the past year. Giselle's work is held in several private collections, and she continues to explore her artistic practice from her studio at Art in the Main Gallery in Dallas. The recent work, featured in De Profundis, Echoes from the Deep, draws from the enigmatic beauty of sea anemones, creatures that blur the line between flower and predator, plant and animal. Through vivid color and intricate pattern, each piece explores the emotional terrain of human connection and the delicate balance between what is seen and what is felt. We are recording today's presentation, and Giselle's talk will be available to view on the Irving Arts Center's YouTube channel in the next 2 to 3 weeks. As always, there is time allotted for Q&A and remarks. At that time, after the presentation, when we have the Q&A, please raise your hand to speak, and a microphone will be passed to you. Please speak into the microphone. It is necessary so we can capture the audio of all your comments and questions on the recording. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a very warm welcome for Giselle Castro-Brightenburg.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, Marcy.
You are welcome.
Very nice, kind words. So I'm excited to present no problem. This artist talk. This, I don't mind telling you, is my first artist talk. Most artists don't really like to talk about themselves, but I'm going to do the best I can to be as entertaining and interesting as possible. So I want to start off with my background. First of all, my real name is Giselle Mendez de Oliveira Castro-Brightenburg. Shortened to Giselle Castro, and then when I got married, Giselle Castro-Brightenburg. My name is descendant from the Portuguese. I was actually born in Brazil, and my father was a Brazilian diplomat, and my mother was South African. Now, how those two ever met, I have no idea. Since my father was a diplomat, I had the privilege of traveling at a very young age to several different countries. We lived in Japan for about a year, and even though I was very young, I remember being very influenced by the aesthetics, the Asian aesthetics, the cherry blossoms, the kimonos, the water temples. It really had a huge impact on me. I also had the great privilege of living in Rome for 6 years. I went to an Italian elementary school, Scuola Elementare Gianturco, And that school is still there today. I took my son last year for the first time to Rome and to see where I went to school, and tried to get into the elementary school, but they wouldn't let me in. They said I needed to make an appointment, which is a shame. And the school is actually right down the street in the corner. So I would walk by the Pantheon every day and live not too far from Piazza Navona. And the reason this experience is integral to my art is because being raised in a place where there's all these churches and these Renaissance paintings and these sculptures and this tragic beauty of the Pietà and St. Peter's had a huge impression on me. And the impression that it left on me was the idea of beauty. That for me, personally, art has to be beautiful. And that is what I try to achieve in my paintings. What I'm trying to convey, and I don't say I always succeed, is the idea that when you look at it, you're like, wow, that's beautiful. And I do understand that everybody has a different idea of beauty. And I'll even mention how some people have talked about my work, not in a positive way, which is fine. You know, we all have different ideas. But that is the essence that I'm trying to convey when I'm painting. Now, I also had the opportunity to live in South Korea. And the reason South Korea is significant is my mother was a very unconventional parent. She decided, you know what, you guys don't need to go to school. Find something to do. And this was my opportunity to take up painting. And the only reason that's interesting was because when I was a toddler, I wrote on everything. The walls, on toys, on TV screens. It drove my parents insane to where I was forbidden any kind of marking tool or paper. So when I got to South Korea, I was like, oh, this is my opportunity. I want to take up painting. So as a precocious 12-year-old, they took me to a studio where I met a Korean painter. This is not his photo. I just put it there to remind myself to talk about him. And this man ran a studio in a small part of South Korea where it was all wooden and the stairs creaked and there was a temple outside the window and there were smells of linseed oil and there was art supply and calligraphy stores all around. It was very scenic. And through a translator, it was explained to me that this was an academic style school, which literally means that the academic way of learning how to paint, you draw from a bust for several months, you learn contour and shadows, you then progress maybe to some charcoal, maybe some watercolor, and then maybe a year from now, they allow you to paint with oils. Well, as a very precocious child, I was like, nope, I'm not doing all that nonsense. I'm a painter, I'm going to paint. Where Chai-Lu just looked at me, laughed, and said, okay. This is one of the decisions I do regret till this day, by the way.
How old were you when you were doing this?
I was 12. So here I am with my little canvas, and this man has a 20-foot by 15-foot canvas, and he's painting these women that are leaning over the ocean, picking up seashells, and there's a landscape, and there's water, and there's sky and clouds. I mean, this man was a master painter. And I'm painting my little girl holding flowers, flowers has always been a significant aspect for me. Oh, and I do see Sybil Novinsky coming in the door. Hello, Sybil. Her husband was one of my professors at University of Dallas. Oh. So please do come in. So, where were we? So, having taken lessons from Chai-Lu, since he couldn't speak any English, he would just laugh. So at one point, I'm painting this little girl with straight arms, holding flowers, and he's laughing. And I'm like, what? And he's like, he was pointing out to me that arms had to be, when you hold something, you don't hold them like this. So this is how we communicated, and this is how he communicated to me the different techniques of what he saw as weaknesses in my art. This had a great impact on me. Just being able to paint next to someone that was so masterful had a huge impact on my life. Okay, so we're going to move on from childhood, and we're going to start, perfect timing because Sybil walked in, my years at the University of Dallas.
Moving all the way up front so she can hear.
Yes. Please do.
Oh dear, sorry.
No problem.
So much.
She was also the counselor at University of Dallas. Yes. So at UD, I got a Master of Arts, and one of my professors was Sybil's husband, Lyle Novinsky, wonderful man, architect, artist. And UD is also Marcy's alma mater, so we have a history there. And I took up painting, loved to paint. And one of the things that I discovered at UD was the Pre-Raphaelites. Wow. Love the Pre-Raphaelites. I was obsessed with the Pre-Raphaelites. It was mid-1800 artist. He was a symbolist. He loved painting the figure of the woman. His favorite muse was Elizabeth Siddal, which unfortunately she died. They're not sure if she died by suicide or overdose of, I think it's called Lidolium or something like that. And what's a little strange about Dante Gabriele Rossetti, which he used her image in many, many paintings, was that when he buried her with all his poetry. He was also a poet. To then dig her up again, to remove his poems and publish the works. Yes, but he used, what was interesting is the type of beauty that this woman is. It's very androgynous. She looks female, she looks male, she's got this very strong jawbone. Right, and then you have the symbolism, the bird, they're very interested in nature and in beauty. So this is one of the paintings I did at UD under the tutelage of Lyle Novinsky. And obviously not to the level of Dante Gabriele Rossetti, but still trying to imitate that nature, the female being the central figure, symbolism, flowers. And at this period in my art career, I do try to incorporate the figure a lot. So let's see what else I have here. And here is another one. This was in my senior show, and it's actually a very large painting. It's like 8 feet by 5 feet, and there's the bird. And here we start seeing the motifs that continue throughout my work, which is pattern, organic elements, bright colors, the idea of wanting to elicit beauty. I have a bird in this picture. Here is another one. This is the male counterpart. The other one was Mother Nature, this is Father Nature. And same thing as patterns, bright colors, kind of a little strange too, a little symbolic. And here is another one. Here I'm trying to incorporate, more of a landscape, more of a dreamy-like quality, which will later play into my influences by Odilon Redon, which I love. But the central theme really is nature. And here is another one that was painted at UD. This is more like Eve running away from Eden, after the fall. Here's another painting. This is more of almost like a Madonna type figure. And And this is also a very large painting, 8 foot. I liked very large. You know.
You like these things.
Yes, now my studio is 10 by 10, so I had to shrink the size of the artwork. So once having graduated from the University of Dallas, I joined the cohort Stout McCourt Gallery down in Deep Ellum. How many of you are artists? Ah, a lot, great. So anybody remember Deep Ellum back in the days, late 90s? David's shaking his head, yeah.
There was a time.
There was a time, yes. So I was part of a cohort of artists. We had to actually pay a fee to show our work there, and but got to sell a lot of paintings. And I had a studio space on top of the gallery that was facing the bank, which is on Elm Street. And at the time, it was the only high-rise building on Elm Street. The only problem with this studio space, even though it was huge, was there was no air conditioning and no heating. So this limited my time for being in there. So at the time I was still living in Irving because I was still associated with UD, but I ended up moving into the 500X building. Is anybody familiar with the 500X building? Marcy? Yes, the 500X building is a building that is still today in Fair Park, and it was an art gallery. And inside the art gallery, there were apartments. So I had an apartment there, and I lived there for 6 years. And there was there's a huge space, so the paintings get bigger again, much bigger. But there's some crazy stories in this building, and I'd like to share one with you, which was, at the time, the artwork that they chose for this space was always very controversial. It was either pornographic or, you know, so every time I'd come home, there'd always be some type of painting right by my doors. Like, why do they have to pick my door to put this on? And there was a neighbor that also felt the same way, right? So, and he liked to drink. So one night, I remember seeing the show going, ugh. And then I went out to do something, to take the trash out, and I noticed that half of the paintings were missing from the wall. So I was like, oh, this looks suspicious. I knock on his wall, and this young man was inebriated. And he's like, I had enough. I decided to put them in the trash. And I'm like, you can't just do that. And he's like, I did. I went to all the dumpsters. I just dumped them all. And so we spent half the evening dumpster diving, because he couldn't remember which dumpster he put them in, retrieving these paintings, cleaning them off, putting them back in the gallery. I don't think anybody ever noticed. You know. And I'll just share one other story, because it was so crazy, which was the same gentleman he had a roommate, and he apparently would drink a lot and didn't quite make it to the bathroom. These floors were paper thin. So if you watered a plant, the water would go into the first floor. So one day, the neighbor downstairs was like, I am so tired of those people and their dog. I asked, not the dog, not the dog. Anyway, these were crazy years at 500X building. So by this time, I have signed up for University of Dallas and did a degree in aesthetics. But first, I want to share with you that I went to UTD, and since I worked at the business school when I went to University of Dallas, met a lot of business professors that were very concerned about my interest in art. And they would ask me, like, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I'd be like, I'm an artist. I'm going to make art, like so many of us, right? And they would like, do you have a gallery that's showing your work? No, not necessarily. It's a co-op. And they'd be like, are you selling any of your work? Well, not really. So at the time, they talked me into getting a teaching certification, which I did. And unfortunately, I never used the teaching certification. But who knows? Still time, right? And then I went to UTD and decided, okay, I'm going to be serious now. Enough of this art stuff. I'm going to get an MBA. So I went to one of the professors and said, you know, it's time to get serious. I'm getting an MBA. So he's like, oh, really? You know, and he knew me from the UD days. So he pulls out, he's like, I just want you to read the course descriptions for the MBA. And I was like, finance, accounting, organizational behavior, you know. He's like, oh, we have a wonderful liberal arts program here at the school. So I was like, you know what, you're right. I don't think I can handle this. I'm not interested. So I ended up getting an MA at the University of Texas. And it was a great experience, more liberal arts, a lot of history, met some brilliant people, and got to work with the professor John Pomara. I don't know, he still teaches there today. I was one of his first graduate students. And so here is the graduate work, and these are, some of these paintings are 11 foot, and these are the same paintings that were shown here at the Irving Arts Center. And this piece here is kind of a different way of displaying the work. So this was the senior show at UTD. And they're obviously very large paintings. So here's another close-up. And here's a picture of John Pomara. And I asked John Pomara, before the show that's hanging in the Carpenter Hall, it was hanging at the Art on Main. I had a solo exhibition there first. And I asked him to come, help me curate it, pick the ones that he liked. So John, being John, he would look at one painting and he'd be like, oh God, give it to an uncle. No, not an uncle. Give it to a cousin, give it to anybody, just give it away. And then another painting is like, oh God, don't give it, just burn it, just burn it. Don't even gesso over it, just burn it. So very funny, but I guess helpful. But ironically, those paintings, I was like, okay, maybe it's just a bad painting, right? And then the next day someone walked in and is like, oh my God, that's beautiful. I love that painting. And I'd be like, okay. Very curious. So at the time I went to UTD, got married and had a child. And here is, named him Wolfgang, named him after Mozart, and forced him into piano lessons, of course. And, but then one day when I was pushing the practice and he wasn't practicing that much, I thought, I'm gonna drop in his piano lesson class. To my horror, him and the piano professor were at the computer doing electronic music. Oh my God. And then I thought, maybe he could be Hans Zimmerman, But that was not to be. Wolfgang is now at University of Washington studying statistics. So I guess the music did inform some of that, right? So once got married, had a child, painting took a back seat, as Marcy said earlier. I ended up working at the Dallas Museum of Art, which I'm still there today. Started off at the slide library. We would mount slides. The photographers were still photographing in film. And but what's significant about this, which my husband reminds me, even though I wasn't painting that much, I was constantly in communication with art, seeing works of art. My department is really all about trafficking images, different exhibitions, new acquisitions, pieces that are being conserved. It's a very interesting job in that sense. We do a lot of publications, so we get to see a lot of art. And there's so many interesting short stories I could share with you about the DMA, but I like to share this one here. This is the painting Salvador Mundi that was supposedly, they're still not sure about it, whether it was a lost Leonardo da Vinci painting. And at the time, Max Anderson, the director, was trying to raise $300 million to acquire this painting. And so all these VIPs, Mark Cuban, George Bush, would walk through the museum and we're like, oh, he's trying to pitch this painting. And our head photographer got to photograph it, so I got to see it very close up. And it's a magnificent piece, whether it's a real Leonardo da Vinci or not. There's sometimes a huge issue about how much conservation is done on a painting. So the painting ended up selling $450.3 million. and it's sold to the Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. And apparently it's on some yacht, and he's waiting to build some museum, but there's still a question whether it's a real Leonardo da Vinci. My other favorite story of the DMA is now I work, from analog. We are all digital, and the department has shrunk, so it's just me and a head photographer and an intellectual property person. And so we were about to photograph a piece of art, and I was supposed to let the curator know, right? And but there were supposed to be two pieces. So there was a sculpture, and there was supposed to be something else. And so I called the curators, like, look, there's a sculpture, and there's some packing material, and the preparators are people that pack artwork, took the material and put it in the trash. But there's nothing else in here, so you need to contact the gallery and say, we didn't receive it. And the curator's like, no, what does the packing material look like? And I'm like, well, it's a bunch of felt. That was the work of art. Like, oops, we better get that out of the trash. Again, yes. So it's been a very interesting tenure, and I really enjoy working the DMA. We're currently working on a jewelry catalog, a jewelry exhibition. There's a surrealist show coming up. So after all this, I would enter a staff show from time to time, but not really that often. And then the museum decided, like, for a few employees, they were going to give us a benefit, which is to take a class or a course on something. And it didn't have to be work-related. So I didn't have to take a management course or how to deal with difficult employees. So I decided, a friend of mine in Scotland had taken an icon painting class. And I thought, they offered an icon painting class at the Abbey across the street from UD. So I took icon painting class. And it was a fascinating experience. It's egg tempera, where they mix the tempera with the egg. And this teacher was actually from Greece. He was the real deal. He was renovating an actual church. And I totally, absolutely enjoyed it. It brought back, memories from Rome. And if I could collect any type of art, it would be religious art, for sure. So this ignited the painting craze again. So I got home, I was like, honey, I need a studio. My husband's like, you can paint here. No, I need a studio. So I went out and started online looking and found Art on Main, found a studio. The space is only 10 by 10, but it works. And I've been painting fast and furious in this very tiny space. And I cranked out 40 paintings that are viewable. It was more like 55 last year. And I'm already at 40 this year. So it's like an obsession now. Total craze. And so this is the first painting. I'm going to talk about the actual artwork. So that whole story was just about my background. So this was the first painting that was inspired by sea anemones, and I had to sit long and hard and think about why sea anemones. And the only thing I could come up with is when my son was very little, he would get really agitated. And the only thing that would calm him down was putting him in front of the TV to watch Blue Planet with David Attenborough. These seas, and he would see the fish, and he would calm down. And so then our thing became going to aquariums. Anytime we go to the aquarium, we became regulars at the Fair Park Aquarium, which was our favorite before they renovated. Not the one downtown, but the one at Fair Park. They would see us coming, and he would say, there's a shark missing in that tank. What happened to it? They'd be like, it's downstairs recovering. But anyway, so I think from being exposed to all these aquariums, sea anemones are like flowers, and they are beautiful. And there is a dangerous quality to them, right? So here is another one. And there's The repetitive theme is bright colors, pattern, organic shapes, right? These paintings obviously are much smaller.
Oh, look at that one.
And these are all hanging in the Carpenter Theater for you to see. So I also want to say something about, so I paint on board and on canvas. And for those that were here to hear about my background, having had the privilege of living in some Asian countries, I think some of the paintings very much, the subconscious comes out and they're very Asian, like scrolls. And my mother also used to collect a lot of Asian art. So when I was growing up, there was always a lot of screens and scrolls and Buddha heads. And I think this informs some of my work. Here's a screen to show that. And I do love Asian art as well. This painting's not hanging in the show, but also was influenced by Gustav Klimt, and he's also like the pre-Raphaelites, a symbolist, and central figures are always women, mostly women. There's always pattern, very interested in nature. And this is The Kiss by Gustav Klimt, which, I'm sure everybody has seen this piece. It's unfortunately over-commercialized. And here is another one of my pieces. And I'm also influenced by Odilon Redon. He's also a symbolist, but it's the colors and it's all three of these painters, Redon, Gabriel Rossetti, and Klimt, their focus is on the flower, on organic material. And he does pastels. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to see the Impressionist Revolution at the DMA. And for the first time, they showed all the Odilon Redons in one room because pastels are the most fragile type of work. So they don't like to keep them out for very long. And during that show, they had all of them together. I was like, oh my God. Now, this is a very large painting. It's like 10 feet by 4 feet. And this was one of those paintings where John Pomaro's like, burn it, just burn it. And then 2 days later, someone's like, I want to buy that painting. It's like, okay, sure. And we concluded that John doesn't like representational paintings. So here's another one, that one also someone decided to purchase. So I'm going to talk about process. Obviously, I'm a very messy painter. Now, Lourdes over there is also a painter and shares a studio at Art on Main and does beautiful geometric paintings, meticulously clean. Meticulously clean. There's not a spot on the floor. And very messy. But I want to tell you how I approach a work of art. First of all, I take a canvas or a board, of course it has to be gessoed, and I put some kind of ground on it, some kind of color. Rarely do I paint just white, because it's very distracting to try to paint something that's just white. So, and usually you can mix some paint with some turpentine, if you're doing oils, with some linseed oil, spread it around, or if you're doing acrylics, just mix a little acrylic. You can also mix some of the paint into the gesso itself before you gesso the painting. And for me, the most important ingredient of the painting is the colors. And so I spend a lot of time looking at different paintings. What I'm looking at is the color combination. So when you go to art openings or art shows, it's okay to take a photograph and say, wow, I really liked how they used those 2 colors or 3 colors. And this is a painting, Roots in the Sky by Noor Jwada. And it was in the Venice Biennale, which I was privileged to go with my son because I took him last year. And I thought, wow, those colors look really good together, And so here is the process. The ground is applied, and I use pencil usually, and sketch it out, and then start painting. Now, I don't plan any of these paintings ahead of time. I just go, and that means there's some failure from time to time, where I just have to tear the painting off the stretcher and go, that just didn't work out, Some painters are very meticulous. They take notebooks, they sketch everything out, they plan out the colors, they do everything ahead of time. I'm not one of those, I just go. For me, it's more important to be in the moment, in the process of painting. And here is the... So I want to talk about some of the titles of the work, if you have a chance to go into the exhibit and see. What I do is, for me, each painting is a diary entry of that particular time in my life. So statements and emails, a text message, music that I'm listening to, something that I read, any text or information that comes to me that rings a bell or brings something forth in me, or listening to a sad song, I use it as a title. And I'm usually listening to it or interacting with that email while I'm doing this painting. So that's how the titles come about. And for some of this piece is not hanging in the show, but this piece is called Unhealthy Attachment. So there's humor in some of this, right? And this one's called Emotional Triggers. So that is the series of underwater things. I'm working on a new series because I think it's a way to create a body of work. Just to say, okay, I'm going to work on a series so you can keep the same theme. So I'm working on a new series that will be displayed in December. So everybody's welcome to come to the show. It's going to be downtown, and it's based on the children's book My Secret Garden. So it's back to florals, but it's about renewal. It's about discovering dormant galleries. Gardens. And also there's a psychological metaphor. Discover them within yourself as well. So I'm going to show just a few pieces of those. And then here I started experimenting a little with dripping some of the linseed oil on the canvas, creating this like rain effect. It worked on some of the paintings. At some point, I consult with another art teacher, and he's like, you can't keep doing that on every painting. It's like, okay. So, all right. Here's another very large painting. This one's a larger one.
Ooh.
And here's one. It's kind of reminiscent of Japanese scrolls, I think, still.
Restrained.
And here's another one. And here's another canvas. So I want to come back to the idea, or bring up the idea of synchronicity. So one day I was, thinking, gosh, if I hadn't stopped painting, I could have been such a much better painter. Time goes by, right? It flies by so fast, and I was feeling a little sorry for myself, right? And then I went to visit my son in Seattle, and he was sitting in our Airbnb, and he was sitting in a certain light, and I was like, can I take your picture? And some of you that have children know it's very hard to take your son's picture. They don't want it. So he let me. And while I took the picture, I realized that he was the pre-Raphaelite painting.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She had the hair. And the gel. That's why.
Crazy.
Your best work.
Exactly. So that concludes my talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Giselle. That was wonderful. And I have to say, when I was going through your PowerPoint yesterday or the day before, when I came to that concluding slide with your son, I was like, oh my gosh, I was blown away. Definitely.
Well, I'm
your
glad
best
you guys liked it,
creation.
because my husband was like, don't include that. That is so cheesy. And I'm like, it's my talk. I'm including it.
We would love to have your questions, your comments. Please raise your hand so I can give this microphone to you, and you will speak. No, I need you to, please, because we are recording, and we need to capture your
Where do you live? Where is your studio?
The studio is down where Columbia, Elm turns into Columbia, and I live in East Dallas.
Irma.
I see the relationship of your flowers to the anemones that you have. There's a real design structure in both of them that's very similar. Was that intentional or
I think it just comes out that
just
way.
comes? Mhm.
Yes.
I do have another question.
Sure.
When you were living in Italy and you went to school there, were they teaching in Italian or were they teaching in...
No, it was an Italian
It
school.
was, so you
It
were...
was a full 100% Italian school.
Wow.
Yes, it was quite a privilege.
Yeah, so you are bilingual in that particular...
Yes, that's correct.
How many languages do you speak?
At one point, I used to speak 4, but if you don't practice languages, you forget them.
Thank
You
you.
know.
Jimena.
Hey. Giselle.
Yes.
Wow. I'm shocked that this is your first speaker, artist speaker.
Thank
You've taken me, you've taken us all to different countries. You've been humorous, and your whole journey is so beautiful. But yeah, I definitely, when you came to your son, that was your masterpiece.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Of course, he's going to kill me if he knows I showed that picture.
he's gorgeous.
Young people.
Do you other people? Have you done other portraits?
No, I did not do that portrait. That's a Gabriele Rossetti painting. If I could only paint that way.
No, the one on the left was your son.
Yes,
Just a photograph.
it's a photograph, yes.
Gregory?
Thank you for your presentation. When you mentioned you had, was it a gallery on Main Street downtown Irving?
A studio space, yes.
Did you know Pete Fernandez by chance?
It's in Dallas.
Oh, it's in Dallas.
In Dallas.
Okay, because she had a gallery called Main Artery.
Oh,
Okay.
I do remember hearing about that one, though, for sure.
And second, I was interested if Georgia O'Keeffe had any influence in your work.
It actually, that's a very good thing. I didn't want to put too many comparisons, but yes, definitely. Definitely George O'Keeffe as well. Yes.
Anyone else? Any comments, questions?
What a pleasure.
Just want to see the painting, like 2-3 slides before this. One more time.
2 or 3 slides before, let's see.
Yeah, your new series. One of your new series. One more? Another? Yeah, that one. I want to look at that one.
That's amazing.
So
Thank you.
And then your flower somehow looks like a sea creature.
Yeah,
combined.
there is a similarity, as she was saying, yeah.
And I like the air, just like the Asian.
Yeah, it is very
Yeah.
Asian, right?
Yeah, it's
Please
not.
talk into the microphone.
Oh.
You have some great things to say.
Oh yeah, it's just because of the space, not because of the color or any techniques or anything, but the space makes it more like a little bit like Asian art.
Yeah,
I really
good.
like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned, if I understood you correctly, you used a number of different media. Do you have a favorite medium that you like to work in?
Oils, primarily.
When you mentioned when you were in South Korea, and they had different, oils and...
Well, they had a different school that taught different types of, before you got to oil painting, but I refused to learn all those other methods, which I regret.
Okay,
I'm
thank
stuck
you.
to the oils. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, you can go to the gallery space and look at the exhibition. It's over on the north side of the building, the Carpenter Lobby Gallery. It's open, it's regular gallery hours, so if you'd like to saunter over there after the presentation, feel free. yeah, really don't miss the opportunity because they are very beautiful and you want to experience art firsthand.